This is not another story about the Strait of Hormuz or the Bab al-Mandab Strait. It's a story about the country between these two choke points and why Saudi Arabia's oil matters to the entire global economy. Here are 4 reasons you should care. Saudi Arabia is the world's 3rd largest oil producer, roughly 9.5 million barrels a day. That's more than 100 barrels every second. Only the US and Russia produce more, according to the US Energy Information Administration. That enormous production gives Saudi Arabia something few countries have: oil in quantities large enough to supply markets around the world. The US might be the largest producer, but it consumes most of its own production. Saudi Arabia exports more crude oil than any other country, nearly 6.5 million barrels a day. Russia comes second with 4.5 million barrels a day, with the US third on nearly 4 million. Roughly 1 in every 7 barrels of crude traded globally comes from Saudi Arabia.
Before this war, it was producing about 10 million barrels per day, but it has about 12.5 million barrels per day of capacity.
Think of it like this. Most oil-producing countries pump as much as they can, but Saudi Arabia deliberately doesn't. It keeps millions of barrels a day in reserve.
So it can, and it does very often, swing production up and down. If there's a shortage in the market, if there's a crisis, it increases production. If there's an excess of supply and oil prices fall, it decreases production. And because of its large production spare capacity, it can be a leader for OPEC, and it can encourage the other OPEC members, so countries like Kuwait and Iraq and other important oil producers, to follow its lead.
Most Saudi oil is exported to China, Japan, South Korea and India, who rely heavily on it. China's imports are most diversified. Russia remains its largest crude oil supplier, while Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates each account for around 14% of imports, according to China's General Administration of Customs. But Japan, for example, imports around 40% of its oil from Saudi Arabia. Together, all these countries account for a huge share of global economic activity. Normally, most Saudi crude flows through the Strait of Hormuz. When that route was blocked, Riyadh diverted some exports through the east-west pipeline to the Red Sea, where tankers passed through the Bab al-Mandab Strait. But if that route were blocked as well, how would Saudi oil reach these destinations? Well, it must go through Egypt, across the Mediterranean, around the Cape of Good Hope, and across the Indian Ocean.
Which adds at least a month to the voyage. It adds costs, it adds logistical difficulty, and it means that the oil, so more than 100 million barrels of oil, would be tied up on tankers, effectively kind of uselessly going around Africa rather than going straight to their markets.
So that's why, if Saudi Arabia's oil stopped flowing, the shock would reach petrol stations, supermarkets, factories and airports around the world.